The desperate signal. The signal arrived on a Tuesday morning when Earth's Deep Space Monitoring Station picked up something that shouldn't have existed. Dr. Elena Rodriguez was sipping her coffee in the observation deck of Luna Station when the emergency alarms began screaming across every channel. The transmission was weak, broken, and desperate, coming from the Kepler 442 system nearly 1,200 light-years away. "This is impossible," whispered Lieutenant Hayes as he ran diagnostics on the equipment. "No one has communication technology that can reach this far." But the signal was real, and it carried a message that would change everything humanity thought they knew about their place in the galaxy. The voice that came through the static belonged to someone named Zura-9, a scientist from the planet Zephyr. Her words were translated by Earth's most advanced AI systems, but the fear in her voice needed no translation. "Please, if anyone receives this message, we are dying. The Void Swarm has consumed 3 of our worlds. Our fleets are broken. The Council has abandoned us. We send this message to any civilization willing to help. We know the odds are small, but we have to try." Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the command center of Earth's most classified military installation, buried 3 kilometers beneath the Colorado Rockies. She had gray hair and sharp eyes that had seen too many classified reports about what really existed beyond Earth's solar system. The public believed humanity was alone, still searching for signs of life among the stars. The truth was far more complex. How did they get our frequency? Asked Dr. Marcus Webb, Earth's leading xenobiologist and the only person on the planet who had actually studied alien communication patterns. His team had been monitoring galactic chatter for decades, learning about the vast civilizations that existed beyond human knowledge. "They didn't," Chen replied grimly. "They sent this message to everyone. It's a broadcast to any species advanced enough to receive it. The question is, are we advanced enough to respond?" For the past century, Earth had been secretly developing technology that even their own citizens didn't know existed. The moon bases weren't just research stations, they were construction facilities. The Mars colonies weren't just scientific outposts, they were military training grounds. And deep in the asteroid belt, humanity had built something that would terrify the galaxy's greatest powers if they knew it existed. The Zephyrian message played again, and this time it included visual data. The screens filled with images of a beautiful world burning. Cities that looked like crystal formations were being torn apart by creatures that seemed to be made of living darkness. The Void Swarm moved like a plague across the planet's surface, consuming everything in their path and leaving nothing but empty gray dust behind. "My name is Elder Korith," said another voice from the transmission. "I am the administrator of Zephyr Colony 7. We have 14 million survivors scattered across emergency shelters and orbital stations. Our military is gone. Our defenses are broken. The Council of Advanced Races received our plea for help 3 cycles ago. They voted to quarantine our system and let the swarm consume us rather than risk the infection spreading." Chen's hands clenched into fists. The Council of Advanced Races was something Earth's intelligence had discovered years ago, a group of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations who considered themselves the guardians of galactic order. They knew about Earth but classified humanity as a primitive species not worthy of contact or membership. "They left them to die," whispered Dr. Webb. 14 million people, and the Council just walked away." The final part of the message showed the Void Swarm up close. The creatures were unlike anything in Earth's databases. They moved like liquid shadow, but struck like solid matter. They seemed to absorb energy and matter, growing larger and more powerful with everything they consumed. Worst of all, they showed signs of collective intelligence, coordinating their attacks with terrifying efficiency. "Admiral," said Captain Jake Morrison, commander of Earth's newest battleship, the UES Defiance. "What are our orders?" Chen was quiet for a long moment, studying the tactical displays that showed Earth's hidden military strength. The public knew about the International Space Station and a few research vessels. They didn't know about the fleet of warships hidden in the outer solar system, powered by fusion reactors and armed with weapons that could crack moons. They didn't know about the Marine Corps units trained for zero-gravity combat, or the AI systems that could coordinate battles across light years of space. The Zephyrians called for help. Chen said finally. They're facing extinction, and the so-called advanced races turned their backs. But they didn't call to the council this time. They called to anyone who would listen. That includes us. Ma'am, we're talking about traveling 1,200 light years into unknown space to fight an enemy that destroyed an entire civilization. Morrison pointed out. Our ships are advanced, but we've never tested them in real combat. Captain Morrison, how long have your crews been training for deep space operations? Chen asked. 3 years of constant drills, Admiral. But training isn't the same as actual battle. Dr. Webb pulled up the technical analysis of the Void Swarm. Based on their attack patterns, they rely on overwhelming numbers and energy absorption. They're devastating against conventional weapons and shields, but they might be vulnerable to more creative approaches. Chen nodded slowly. Earth's military doctrine had always been different from what they observed in other species. While galactic civilizations focused on massive energy weapons and impenetrable shields, humanity had developed something else entirely. Their weapons were designed to be unpredictable. Their tactics focused on adaptability and surprise. Dr. Webb, I want a full analysis of Void Swarm weaknesses within 6 hours. Morrison, prepare the 3rd Deep Space Fleet for immediate deployment, and get me a direct line to President Martinez. She needs to make a decision that will change humanity's place in the galaxy forever. The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. Deep beneath Earth's oceans, massive hangar doors opened for the first time in decades. Ships that had been built in secret began powering up their engines. The UES Defiance was joined by 5 other vessels, each one packed with technology that represented the best of human engineering and the hardest lessons learned from studying alien civilizations. President Martinez's decision came swiftly. Admiral Chen, the United Earth government authorizes you to respond to the Zephyrian distress call with whatever force you deem necessary. We will not stand by while genocide occurs, regardless of what the Council thinks of our involvement. As the human fleet prepared for departure, long-range sensors detected something troubling. The Void Swarm was spreading faster than the Zephyrian estimates suggested. 3 more star systems had gone dark in the past week, their communication networks falling silent one by one. Admiral, reported Lieutenant Hayes from the sensor station. We're picking up scattered transmission fragments from the affected systems. It looks like the swarm isn't just consuming the Zephyrians. They've hit the Corellian trade routes and at least 2 council member worlds. Chen felt a chill run down her spine. The council hadn't abandoned the Zephyrians out of cruelty. They had abandoned them out of fear. The Void Swarm was spreading too fast to contain, and the galaxy's most advanced civilizations were retreating rather than fighting. That changes things, she said grimly. This isn't just about helping one species anymore. If the swarm continues expanding at this rate, it will reach Earth's galactic neighborhood within a century. The fleet's final preparations were completed as Earth's sun set behind the lunar horizon. 6 ships carrying humanity's best technology and most experienced crews were ready to jump into hyperspace and cover 1,200 light years in a matter of days. But as they prepared to leave, one more message arrived from the Kepler system. "This is Zora 9, came the familiar voice, weaker now and filled with exhaustion. If anyone received our message and is considering helping us, please know that we understand the risk. The swarm has taken 4 more worlds since our last transmission. We have perhaps days before our last shelters fall. We don't expect rescue anymore. We just wanted someone to know that we existed, that we tried to survive, and that we called for help even when hope was gone." Admiral Chen stepped onto the bridge of the UES Defiance and looked out at the stars. Somewhere among those distant lights, millions of beings were facing extinction, while the galaxy's most powerful civilizations chose safety over justice. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen," she announced over the fleet communication system. "We are humanity's first deep space military operation. We're traveling further from Earth than any human has ever gone, to fight an enemy that has defeated civilizations far more advanced than ours. But we're not going because we're the strongest or the smartest. We're going because someone called for help. And that's what humans do." The fleet jumped to hyperspace with a flash of blue light, carrying Earth's answer to a desperate plea. Behind them, monitoring stations across the inner solar system detected the energy signature and began calculating trajectory. Within hours, intelligence networks throughout the galaxy would know that the primitive species from Sol 3 had just launched their first interstellar military mission. The journey to Kepler 442 would take 5 days. When they arrived, humanity would face its first real test as a galactic power. But as Admiral Chen watched the stars stream past the viewports, she felt something that the Council of Advanced Races had apparently forgotten. Sometimes the right thing to do wasn't the safe thing to do. Sometimes someone had to answer the call for help, even when the odds were impossible. Especially when the odds were impossible. Part 2. The overwhelming response. 5 days later, the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system, and what they found was worse than anyone had imagined. The system's primary star was dimmer than it should be, its light somehow muted by clouds of dark matter that drifted between the planets like cosmic smoke. 3 worlds that should have been glowing with city lights were now gray and silent, their surfaces covered in the same strange darkness that seemed to absorb all energy. "Admiral, I'm reading massive electromagnetic disturbances throughout the system," reported Chief Science Officer Liu from her station aboard the UES Defiance. "Whatever the void swarm does to consume matter, it's affecting space itself." Admiral Chen studied the tactical displays with growing concern. The Zephyrian survivors were clustered around the 4th planet, hiding in orbital stations and asteroid bases that were barely powered enough to maintain life support. Long-range scans showed thousands of void swarm creatures moving between the inner planets like a dark tide. "Captain Morrison, take us to the survivor stations. Full stealth approach. I want to know what we're dealing with before we announce our presence." The human fleet moved silently through the outer system, their ships' hulls coated with metamaterials that bent light and absorbed sensor waves. It was technology borrowed from studying alien stealth systems, but improved with human engineering principles that focused on practical effectiveness over elegant theory. As they approached the largest survivor station, a massive structure that looked like it had been built from salvaged ship parts and asteroid mining equipment, Communications Officer Hayes picked up a weak transmission. "Unknown vessels, this is Zephyr Station Alpha," came a tired voice. "Please identify yourselves. We have no weapons and no resources worth taking. If you're here for salvage, please leave us some life support equipment." Dr. Webb stepped forward. "Admiral, let me handle first contact. I've been studying their language patterns." Chen nodded, and Webb activated the main communication array. "Zephyr Station Alpha, this is Dr. Marcus Webb of the United Earth Fleet. We received your distress call. We're here to help." The silence that followed lasted nearly a minute. When the response came, the voice was shaking with disbelief. "Earth? You said Earth. But your species isn't even in our database. The Council classifies your system as pre-contact civilization. The Council's information is out of date," Admiral Chen said, taking over the communication. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen, commanding the 3rd Deep Space Fleet. We're requesting permission to dock and assess your situation." Another pause, then a different voice, older and more formal. "Admiral Chen, this is Elder Korith. We welcome your assistance, though I must warn you that the situation is hopeless. The Void Swarm has consumed 90% of our population. We estimate 3 days before our final defenses fail." The docking procedure revealed the desperate state of the Zephyrian survivors. The station was overcrowded, running on minimal power, and filled with refugees who looked like they hadn't slept in weeks. The Zephyrians themselves were tall, slender beings with pale blue skin and large dark eyes that seemed to hold depths of ancient wisdom. But now those eyes were filled with exhaustion and the hollow look of people who had seen their entire civilization die. Zara 9 met the human delegation in the station's central hub. She was younger than her voice had suggested, with intricate silver markings on her skin that Dr. Webb recognized as scientific achievement indicators. Despite everything she had endured, she stood straight and spoke with clear determination. "Admiral Chen, I must ask why you have come so far to help a species you've never met. The Council's database indicates your civilization has no interstellar military capability." Chen smiled grimly. "The Council's database is incomplete. We've been watching galactic affairs for decades, learning from species that didn't know we existed. When we heard your call for help, we decided it was time to introduce ourselves properly." Dr. Webb was studying the tactical data the Zephyrians had compiled about the Void Swarm. The creatures were even more dangerous than Earth's initial analysis had suggested. They could phase between solid and energy states, making conventional weapons largely ineffective. They consumed matter and energy to reproduce, turning every destroyed ship or power plant into more of themselves. Their weakness, Zara 9 explained, seems to be their hive mind connection. They coordinate perfectly, but they also share damage and disruption. If we could find a way to overload their communication network, we might have a solution for that, said Captain Morrison, who had been quietly studying the data. Our weapons aren't conventional by galactic standards. We developed them specifically to counter advanced alien technology. Elder Korith looked confused. But the Council's assessment indicated your species uses primitive chemical propulsion and kinetic weapons. We let them think that, Chen replied. Dr. Webb, show them the technical specifications. The next hour was spent explaining Earth's true technological capabilities. The humans had developed weapons based on principles that most galactic civilizations had abandoned as too dangerous or unpredictable. Quantum disruptors that could phase matter out of existence, gravity bombs that created localized space-time distortions, neural interference systems designed to disrupt hive mind communications. These weapons, whispered Zara 9, staring at the technical readouts. They're designed to be unpredictable, to adapt to enemy countermeasures. Most species develop weapons that work reliably under controlled conditions. You developed weapons that work when nothing else will. Humans are very good at surviving impossible situations, Dr. Webb explained. Our entire evolutionary history has been about adapting to threats that should have killed us. We applied the same principles to military technology. As they spoke, the station's alarms began screaming. The Void Swarm had detected the human fleet and was moving to investigate. Thousands of dark shapes were flowing through space like living oil, converging on the survivor stations. All survivors to emergency shelters, announced Elder Korith over the station's communication system. The swarm is beginning another assault. But Admiral Chen wasn't retreating. Captain Morrison signaled the fleet. Operation Overwhelming Response is now active. All ships deploy quantum mines in a sphere formation around the station cluster. Dr. Webb, I need you to coordinate with Zora 9 on the neural interference systems. The human fleet moved into battle formation with a precision that impressed even the experienced Zephyrian military observers. The ships spread out in a three-dimensional pattern that seemed random but was actually calculated to maximize the effectiveness of their unconventional weapons. The first wave of Void Swarm creatures reached the minefield and immediately began adapting to the explosions, their forms shifting to absorb the energy and convert it to their own use. But the quantum mines weren't designed to destroy the creatures through conventional explosions. They were designed to destabilize the fundamental forces that held matter together. The creatures that touched the quantum field simply ceased to exist, not destroyed but erased from reality itself. The swarm's adaptation abilities were useless against weapons that didn't follow normal physical laws. Impossible, breathed Zara 9, watching the tactical display. How are you making them disappear? Quantum uncertainty principle, Dr. Webb explained while coordinating the neural interference array. If you disrupt the quantum state that defines a particle's existence, the particle stops existing. The creatures can adapt to energy weapons and kinetic impacts, but they can't adapt to ceasing to exist. The second phase of the battle began as the remaining swarm creatures tried to coordinate a new attack pattern. This was when the neural interference systems activated. The humans had studied the fragments of swarm communication they had intercepted and developed a weapon specifically designed to overload hive mind networks. The effect was immediate and devastating. Thousands of void swarm creatures suddenly stopped moving in coordination and began attacking each other in confusion. Their perfect unity became chaos as the neural interference created feedback loops in their shared consciousness. Captain Morrison's voice came over the communication system. "Admiral, the gravity bombs are ready for deployment. Shall we finish this?" Chen looked at the tactical display. The void swarm was in complete disarray, their numbers reduced by 90%, and their coordination destroyed. The survivors watching from the stations were staring in disbelief at the sight of humanity's first major military action. "Deploy the gravity bombs, Captain. Let's show the galaxy what happens when you ignore a call for help." The final weapons were unlike anything any galactic civilization had ever developed. They created localized gravitational anomalies that pulled the remaining swarm creatures into compressed space, where they were crushed down to the atomic level. The dark clouds that had been consuming the system were pulled into tiny points of super-compressed matter that quickly evaporated in flashes of Hawking radiation. In less than 4 hours, the void swarm that had destroyed an entire star system and threatened to spread across the galaxy was completely eliminated. The silence that followed was broken by Elder Korith's voice over the communication system. "Admiral Chen, on behalf of the surviving Zephyrian people, I don't have words adequate to express our gratitude. You have accomplished what the greatest military powers in the galaxy said was impossible." But Chen was already looking at the long-range sensors. "Dr. Webb, are you picking up what I'm seeing?" Webb nodded grimly. 17 different alien fleet signatures, all converging on this system. Word of our victory has spread fast. Within 6 hours, representatives from the Council of Advanced Races, the Corellian Trade Federation, and a dozen other galactic powers had arrived in the Kepler system. They came expecting to find either a destroyed human fleet or a swarm-consumed wasteland. Instead, they found the Zephyrian survivors rebuilding their stations and a human fleet calmly patrolling the system. The Council's senior representative, a being that looked like a crystalline tree with glowing nodes for eyes, transmitted a formal message to Admiral Chen. "Admiral, the Council of Advanced Races formally acknowledges Earth's military intervention in the Kepler 442 crisis. We would like to discuss Earth's potential membership in galactic governmental structures." Chen's response was broadcast on all frequencies, ensuring that every species in the system heard it clearly. "Council Representative, Earth appreciates your offer. However, we decline membership in any organization that abandons entire civilizations to genocide when helping them seems inconvenient. We'll be establishing formal diplomatic and military aid agreements with any species that shares our values regarding mutual assistance and defense." The political implications of Earth's statement rippled across the galaxy within days. Dozens of smaller civilizations that had been ignored or mistreated by the Council began sending diplomatic inquiries to Earth. The balance of galactic power, stable for millennia, was suddenly shifting around a species that had been considered primitive just weeks earlier. But for Admiral Chen, standing on the bridge of the UES Defiance and watching the Zephyrian survivors begin the long process of rebuilding their civilization, the politics mattered less than the simple fact that they had answered a call for help. "Admiral," asked Dr. Webb, "what do we do now? Half the galaxy wants to either recruit us or eliminate us as a threat." Chen smiled as she watched the first refugee ships departing for the outer planets, where they would begin establishing new colonies. "Now we go home, Dr. Webb. We have a lot of work to do." It seems humanity just became a galactic power whether we wanted to or not. The journey back to Earth would take 5 days, just like the journey out, but they would be returning to a changed galaxy, one where the name humanity was spoken with respect, fear, and hope in equal measure. The species that had answered a desperate call for help had become the species that other civilizations called when they needed a miracle. And as Admiral Chen had learned during her career, humans were surprisingly good at providing miracles when someone asked for help.